Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining the conference today. Thank you to Tatango and to Guy and for the group to put it together. It's been a long set of conversations we've been having with Guy over the course of the years, and so it's always great to come to events like this for me because it lets me sort of be amongst my tribe. And I'm as the little voice of God over us here said earlier, I'm with the company Satmetrix. We were recently acquired by Nice Systems, and I want to tell you a little bit about our story as a way to make a point to you today. And I'm going to try to land a fairly significant primary point I want to make. And it's going to be interesting for me because I'm usually the guy that's up here sort of waving my hand at the product slides and talking about what we're doing differently. But instead, I want to talk a little bit about my journey as a customer using these kinds of tools and how that's progressed and what my needs have looked like over the course of the years. And you know, I always like to know when someone stands up in front of me at a conference like this, from what perspective are they speaking? Who are they to say? Well, here's who I am to say what I'm going to tell you guys today. So I've got my own loads of biases, so everyone will have variations on what I say. Hopefully I'll bring to you guys a moment of truth that sort of resonates for you or pieces of this that look right for you. But here's how I ended up with these conclusions. So I was part of the design faculty at UIUC, so I've got that kind of designer gene. I'm a little bit pesky that way. I tend to be a design thinker at the core. I've worked in a variety of both public and private companies, and you can see some of the logos there on the slide. My journey in the Valley goes all the way back to Netscape and into places like AOL and Yahoo, where we had a real bifurcation between user experiences and customer experiences. In many ways, companies like that have users that they are creating as a product to sell to their customers. So very interesting experiences around this need set there. In the startup world, I want to talk to you a little bit about some experiences I've had at a couple of key companies. And I want to talk particularly about this idea that we all sort of bow down to and pay homage to, and especially in this tribe. You know, amongst my people, I don't think this is controversial, that we want to have customer-centric companies. I also think that it's really well embraced widely across the world today because there are a lot of factors driving us there. There's never been an easier entry into market historically. Market frictions are very low. Lots of things are there available to you. The impediments to a competitor entering your space are also very low. There's a lot of pre-built technology and information systems out there for us to use. We have an always-on connected customer, and we have increasingly digital footprints around our business processes that put a lot of this stuff on the table in front of us today. But I want to speak more specifically to a problem I've seen as a professional, both in the boardroom, when I'm sitting in executive staff meetings, as well as when I've talked to hundreds of customers and I've run teams of customer success as well. It's really this idea of how do I get to customer-centric operations? And I'll try to build you a story of what that problem looked like for me from a couple of different places. But my current position is also one of interest, right? So think about this. I'm coming from a startup company with over 400 customers all around the globe. We've been acquired by a larger public company. Sound familiar? Inside that company, we have lots of different people with labels like account manager, customer success manager, client service operations. We have some centralized teams. We have teams that are associated with the line of business. So we on our own continue to go down this journey. And what I'm going to say about operations is it takes more than great intentions, and it takes more than an intention to speak to this in your marketing taglines. Really, you have a whole host of systems that you look to as a professional in a seat like mine across the organization that have latent customer information in them. They have pieces of the puzzle that I'm trying to solve. And so I'm usually looking for the way to actually accelerate my impact by putting those together in a really dynamic way that jumpstarts my program. That's been true at a couple of different places, and I'll talk about what I mean by that. Today, in my mind, among multiple systems that are out there, two have really emerged specifically for this, and I'll bet a lot of you in this room are using those kinds of systems. One is customer experience management, where I'm going out and gathering a lot of feedback to see insight in my customer and outside-in view. We heard Nicole talk about that earlier today. A lot of you are probably doing that. And then you have big investments on how to make this work called customer success and customer success teams and organizations that really have their day-to-day lives are spent in that farming paradigm, and they need a platform for that as well. So my case for you today is it's time now we need a customer stack. Now, I'm a guy that's run product teams in the Valley for a lot of years, and we use this term a lot of the times in a variety of contexts. The one you probably hear the most is, I need a product stack. So that might be a LAMP stack, a Java stack, it might be a mean stack. There are a number of technologies that layer on top of each other to give you a foundation that really accelerates you to a high percentage of the value you need in one place. That's what I mean about a stack. You see stacks starting to emerge in other places. Marketing technology has an emerging stack. You're seeing that today. My point to you today is not that it's the marketing stack. It's not that it's CRM. I'm talking about a customer stack. And this is what I found myself needing in a variety of places. So who needs something like this? Only every customer for whom lifetime value is a key to their business. And only if they think customer experiences drive the kinds of success that build brand loyalty to build their business. So there may be a few companies out there today in monopolistic positions that don't really have competitive pressures, but most companies hit these two triggers. And if you're doing this, you hear it coded to you in business speak. I need to improve lifetime value of my customers. I need to reduce churn, grow through referrals. I need to target service improvements in my customer service center. So you hear it positioned a lot of ways. And I've heard all of these in a variety of companies and experiences through the years. Let me talk to you about one of them. I mentioned the logos on the first slide. Usendit was a company I was at. It was in the cloud file sharing space. If you didn't know Usendit, you might know Box, you might know Dropbox, you might know SugarSync, other products in that category. If you think about our business problem at that time, we're a mid-stage startup. We're built completely on subscription revenues. We were kind of B to C to B. We were out there getting end users to adopt on a freemium model and then transferring them to paid customers. We had millions of users, we had thousands of customers, we were in a very competitive market, and as is the case with lots of startup companies, and you'll see it in people's stories today, you just saw it in Slack, ARR, growth. I need growth, that's my metric. So when I looked at that company and I sort of figured out what the mission was, and we really honed in over countless hours of looking at this, we sort of settled in on a couple of primary things that we were using as uber metrics in our business, that we as a management team sat around and talked about every week. Now, when I say sat around and talked about it, I'll tell you the tyranny of a 4-hour weekly staff meeting where you're picking through data to try to see these things can be really overwhelming, and that was the case at a company like this. Now, that was 7 years ago. So we have much better tools at our fingertips today, but it was very difficult at the time. We were looking for these two to stick out to us. We wanted lifetime value growth, so we wanted more customers for longer periods of time. For us, it was monthly recurring revenue because we had a monthly subscription, and we had a commitment to NPS. But I want to talk a little bit about what the limits of that were. So in every week, every meeting, we talked about the business metrics. Somebody today, I think it might have been Nicole, talking a little bit about the acronym SOUP. So we looked at it all. We looked at all the dependencies between them, and we talked about them at length, and we saw them every week and in depth every quarter. NPS, we put at the top of our list, Net Promoter Score, and yet we ran that like a research project. I like to use the metaphor of we were tasking a satellite. We want to see what we can see. And so what I say is our satellite at that time flew over our company landscape once a year, maybe twice a year if we could really put it together, and took an incredibly grainy, low-resolution picture of that, and then we tried to use that for the rest of the year. So that became a real challenge for us, and we had to push past that. As I moved on in my career, I wound up, and this is where it gets a little bit meta, I wound up at a company, Satmetrix, that was doing voice of customer, that was looking to solve some of the problems I just talked about in the first one, and we did. It was a mid to late stage startup, subscription revenue, in this case, all business to business, all really primarily enterprise when I got there, with a big push to get into the mid-market, and we were re-platforming all the technology to do it. I talk about Stack, whole new product technology stack at that time, a lot of change to manage through. We were focused on customer growth, yes, but because we were moving our customers through so much transition, we actually had a slightly different focus than we did at Usendit. Now, I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, but things have changed there still again. As I mentioned, we're acquired by NICE in July of last year, and so now we have a much bigger landscape where we're trying to influence a much bigger company on some of the very same points I'm going to talk about that we faced at Satmetrix. Larger problem, bigger challenges. So we had 4 areas of focus at Satmetrix. LTV was there. We knew we had a commitment to NPS. It was kind of built in. Now my satellite was a much better satellite. This thing had a geosynchronous orbit over my customers, always on, always feeding data. Every customer had a born-on date. Every customer got lifecycle triggered events that told me what they thought about me. They also had touch point sequences where I could hear deeply and diagnostically what they had to say. I had a lot of voice of customer. What I didn't have was really the customer success side of the equation. I couldn't see, in a place where I was making a lot of investments, what was the engagement profile emerging from this? How were they engaging with the product? And then I couldn't see maturity. I could tell that customers were highly influenced by the fact that they were progressing up a maturity curve, but I couldn't really tell what it was. And so we really had to attack that problem. So the outlook looked a little different. We were pretty good at getting the voice of customer or CEM signals. We had to move into user engagement. We had to move into product maturity. And that really put us on the next phase of our journey. So what I've arrived at as I've looked at this over countless companies over the years is, you know, forgive the kind of Dr. Seussism of it, but we lack a stack. I don't have this problem in other parts of my business. I don't really have it in my I don't sit down with my technology team and say, you know what? Should we be .NET or Java next month? We don't have that problem. We have a stack that we commit to and that we build on. It moves, it changes in time, and we need something like that for the customers. So what is a customer stack really? What does it really contain? So for us, we thought deeply about it. We looked at our problems that we were having inside that business. I looked back at other experiences, and in this case, I had the benefit of talking to hundreds of customers who were already doing CEM, and were also probably a lot of them trying to do CS, CSM. They had deployed teams. Some of them were called account managers. Some of them were called customer service executives. Some of them were called customer success engagement managers. I've heard it all. It's been a veritable delight of different labels, but they were all looking for a lot of the same things. And we landed on this. I call this the Big Six. This is what we felt like we have to have. And we also wound up on the reality that we really shouldn't be doing CEM without CSM or CSM without CEM, that they kind of go together. And when I look at your presentations, and I've been to a number of them today, I see the same kinds of things. So you need a system of record for the customer feedback. This is not just, you know, go out, pop a survey, and forget about it. This has to be longitudinally maintained data over a course of many, many cycles. It has to be highly segmented and stored correctly so it can be used in a variety of purposes. It has to be collected at a variety of omni-channel inputs. Email surveys, IVR transitions off the phone, SMS surveys. It has to emerge inside of mobile applications. You have to go where the customer goes, work where they work, right? You need a tracking system for user engagement. You absolutely have to see how people are engaging with your business. For me, it's very straightforward. It's a product, a technology, an application. That may not be the case for your business. You may have different points of engagement that you need to measure and manage. You have to have a primary system for the customer success team. Believe me, I've learned this the hard way. The CEM platform is not enough. You need something more, and I'll talk about what I mean by more in a little bit. You have to have analytics. So it does you no good to go out there, pop a survey, pull a score, and say, hey, my NPS is 85. So what? Who can tell you anything about that? You need to understand how that's connecting to different parts of the business, and more importantly, how the customer experiences that are happening that dictate how customers see you, how they're being measured. You have to have a system engagement to deliver that insight. It can't be sitting there in the back shelf. It can't be a BI team. It cannot be, and I'll repeat this, it cannot be a once a quarter slide deck that only the professional team can show to somebody along with lots of voiceover for narrative. We don't do LTV and MRR that way. We don't do ARR that way. We don't do revenue that way. This needs to be at the core of your operation, so it has to be accessible. Then I think a lot of people think they have this already, but I find that almost no customer does. You need a system of record for the customer profile, and newsflash, it is not your CRM system. Your CRM system has other primary use cases right now, and they're great, and they do a lot of wonderful things. We couldn't survive without connecting to them. It's very important. It's not the place where you can understand all of these things about the customer. And I think a lot of you know that as you've deployed CSM as a place where that exists. So my argument to you today is with these overlapping products in CEM, CSM, is we're beginning to have the fundamentals of the core customer stack. And those are the core elements that I think we need. Don't be confused when I say that to say we don't need subscription management or customer relationship management, that we don't need marketing automation, that we don't need the kinds of systems that we're doing for web analytics or the kind of systems that we're doing for workflows and case management. We need all of those, and we need a platform that plays well with others in our core stack. All right, so I want to be careful to say it's not a monolith. So what we've done is we've kind of pulled back. We've looked strategically. We actually sat down with the folks at Tatango and looked at this problem deeply as well. We were trying to solve it first for ourselves, but as I told you, we see it in a lot of places today with our customers. Today we see both of these things sort of operating independently or slightly interdependently. What we would propose is you need a T-shaped approach. Now, a lot of people would have maybe heard this notion of T-shaped around individuals. I want to be a T-shaped individual. I want to be able to interface well, broadly across my functions and with my colleagues. I want to be able to say what I need to say, learn what I need to learn, but I need to go deeply into my area of expertise and offer some high value with deep expertise in a certain area. And that's the way we looked at the problem. Again, remember, solving it for ourselves. This is the system that we're building inside of our company. We start with this idea that we believe, and this is very easy to say, it's not always easy to get heads going up and down in the executive staff meeting about. Our business happens where our customers interact with our team. And I don't just mean directly with teams. It might be your product and the product team behind it. It might be a service portal and the service portal behind it. But it's where those two things meet at touch points is where we believe all of your business is really taking place. When you're looking at things like MRR, when you're looking at things like churn, you're looking in rearview mirror at the effects of what's going right or wrong at this juncture. What we do is we try to build a framework that helps you build programs around this. So we organize these key touch points into a life cycle or a journey. And I know a lot of terminology around journey has been out there today, and they're all legitimate. I'd say the way we use the term is that this is not a service blueprint. I'm not trying to find an individual, track all the different touches they do through a service channel, and figure out how they solve their problem. Think more like a customer life cycle, like we just saw on the Slack slides, where we're looking at how customers progress up a maturity curve, or in this case, on their way to renewal. And in specific, we identify key customer touchpoints, and I'll show you some of the ones we use inside our own business. So we use purchase, onboarding, training. We think training is incredibly important and often overlooked. Consulting, where we have people with domain expertise. Services, where we have people with technical or product expertise interfacing. The product itself, obviously a huge part of our investment, so we look closely at that. And then we also think support is incredibly important. What happens when things go wrong, when people need help? We look broadly across these, as should everyone, to understand what is the high-level understanding the customer has of your brand. Now, we would say, as I think a lot of you would, that a great metric for that is NPS. This is a loyalty metric. They're looking at all of the experiences they're having across the journey with you, and they're giving you feedback. And it should not be triggered by an event that happens specifically in the journey. It should really be on a life cycle paradigm. So customers get this on a frequent basis, everybody some certain point beyond their born-on date or by some trigger in your maturity model. In addition to this, don't try to diagnose everything about every touch point in that survey. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people go out and do 100 questions in a survey. What you really want to do is get a sense from the broad view, start building your T's. So I'm looking now down specific touch points and I want to diagnose more clearly. I want to ask things that are a little bit more specific. So if you think about it, an easy way to think about it in a survey form or a web feedback form is that I might ask you your Net Promoter Score, and then I might ask you to just generally rate me on these touch points. I'm going to then go do regressions and look for some kind of driver analysis that says, you know what, I see a correlation between a soft spot at the touch point and a bad outcome. Let's go put a touch point form in place. Let's go get feedback on that. And this feedback doesn't only have to come from customers. That's CEM. This feedback can come from other places as well. Now, we use this as a framework to teach the company how to do this, how to think from a customer-centric point of view. So what we do is we use this to line up all of the different stakeholder teams inside the organization against this model. Everybody in the organization has a place in this world. You're either maybe a primary KPI manager around one of these touch points, or you're in the leadership team and you need to look broadly across them. Now, we did this for years, and this is pretty effective, and what we started to see is that we were still missing something. So the first thing we did is put resources on it. We built customer success management teams, and I'll talk a little bit about how we made that work together. So our CEM program gets set up. We sort of drive all that stuff through analysis into dashboards, put those key metrics in front of people in the business so they can see what their KPI is. So if you're an onboarding leader, You might need an overall satisfaction score trended over the last 6 quarters as you're making changes to onboarding to see what kind of outcomes you're driving. If you're a business leader, you might need a net promoter score on the entire journey. Everybody has a different dashboard that they need, and it should be purpose-built for their needs. What we didn't have and what we need, and what we're now deploying in partnership with Tatango, is we needed a CSM platform. We put people in place that look broadly across these things. But they needed to do more than the dashboard. They needed to go through customer profiles. They needed all the engagement tracking that they were able to do. And now the paradigm starts to move into health score. I'm looking broadly, and I want a collective score about a portfolio or an individual account. And it's beyond the brand level customer feedback metric. It's a collective health score. And one of the key drivers there might be your own internal performance metrics, even more so than what customers are telling you, right? We needed a place where we could actually get actionable. Early customer success programs struggle, I think, most here. They don't do much to drive action. They get some insight, and then they're sort of left with, go fix it, Tim. Go fix it, Sally. What do we need to do? Well, instead of that, we need to be formalizing plays. We need to put playbooks in their hands. We need to track those like cases. We need to see how we're doing there. And then you need some kind of program summary. This is the profile, the place where all the information about what the customer is doing, what they bought, why they bought it. Some of it's going to come from CRM. Some of it's going to come from the application. It needs to be in one place. Most importantly for us is we started to really believe that these things needed to work together, and so we needed to link them together, and that's what we're doing now. We're putting those things together, and we're also linking to that broader ecosystem of connectors. So if you look at that, where you end up is you have the core pieces that I've talked about, in our case, resident in nice Satmetrix product for CEM, and Tatango for CSM. And so what we're doing now is deploying those things tightly in concert because we believe they really give you the stack. With those in place, we get a lot of the things we're looking for. We get the comprehensive omni-channel feedback from the customer. We get the engagement, tracking, managing, reporting. We get operational customer support. We also happen to be a ServiceNow customer, so we're linking to ServiceNow to bring it all into one place. And what I get is speed. I get a place where my team now has a stack, and not every decision is a greenfield decision. I have capabilities built into the platform, and you can build this out in a variety of ways, just the same way a LAMP stack developer can build multiple applications on that technology stack. Or when you go consume a stack inside of the Amazon Web Services organization, you don't see the same application come out every time. It's an enabling stack. And so I believe strongly that this is a big piece of what we need, what my tribe needs. And when I sit on the consumption side and I'm trying to figure out what's going inside of these companies, what's going on, and how the business is operating, or when I sit down with customers and I hear about what they need, a lot of it really equates to this. This is kind of the 80% use case for us. It's the big 6. And so that's it. I'd say, we're excited about it. Guy's going to talk a little bit more about how we're partnering tomorrow. We're putting these things not only in our own hands, but in the hands of our customers and the customers at Tatango. And we're looking for people who are doing both things in the same place. So who should talk to us? I'd say companies like us. You're trying to drive lifetime value? Are you seeing interactions with the customer or experiences as core to how those outcomes are landing? If you're doing both of these things already, and sometimes the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. If you're doing a lot of things inside of customer success, but you'd like to trigger more feedback loops with the customer automatically. Lots of places where the stack can help you. So if it's not our stack, that's okay. I think you have to have a stack. I think it's time to quit thinking about point solutions in isolation. And if you want your voice to be heard inside the boardroom, inside the executive staff meeting, as central to how the company truly operates, that's what we need today. Thank you.